Hello, today we are going to talk about the decline of the empire, as what we know as los Austrias Menores. Los Austrias Menores are Felipe III, Felipe IV, and Carlos II. During this century, we are in the 17th century, monarchs of the junior branch of the House of the Austria ruled over Spain. These three kings displayed a weaker personality than their predecessors and delegated the task of government to validos, or in English, royal favorites. These validos, or royal favorites, were aristocrats of the court. They were absolute confidants of the king, who adopts the main decisions of government. These validos are going to act as mediators between the king and the kingdoms, and their signature was equivalent to that of the king. These validos are going to tend to govern outside the councils through small and more aged support in decision-making. They were corrupt and benefited their relatives and friends with charges, possessions, and titles. They are going to be object of criticism and envy between all the aristocrats of the court. The most important validos are going to be, for example, from Felipe III, el Duque de Lerma, very famous for all this corruption. You have here another photograph. Felipe IV and the Conde Duque de Olivares. Conde Duque de Olivares was a very good valido. He knows about politics and took better decisions than his predecessor. And then the last king, Carlos II, that you have here Juan de Austria, but we have like several characterized of the crisis of the end of his reign, a succession of different validos. For example, Father de Nitar, Juan de Austria, etc. We are going to focus on domestic problems and foreign problems, and also at the end we are going to talk about the economic and social problems, demographic problems, that are the main characteristics of the 17th century in Spain. Okay, so with Felipe III and the Duke of Lerma, his valido, okay, he is going to move through personal interest. So he's not going to have a coherent political program. He's going to amass positions and a huge fortune. But he's going to fall into disgrace, and he's going to be replaced by his son, the Duke of Uceda. One of the main events that is going to happen during his reign is the expulsion of the Moriscos in 1609. The Moriscos were accused of maintaining the religion and being a political problem. So at the end, more than 250 or 300, depending on the source, of the population were expelled. The main consequences of this expulsion, okay, it's the more important aspect of all this. The expulsion led to the departure of all these people, and this left many villages empty. It also deprived the land-owning nobility of a submissive and hard-working labor force. It was the kingdom of Valencia that suffered most from this, as it had the highest Morisco population. So it affected the economy and the population, mainly in Valencia. With Felipe IV and the Conde Duque de Olivares, as I told you, they were perfect harmony. Okay, so he is the most capable and active politician of the century, and also, although he also took advantage, but his political ideas and decisions were quite good. He wanted to make the monarchy Spanish. Okay, he wanted to get together all the different territories that were part from Spain, Castilla, Aragon, etc. In this text that you have here, it summarized the most ideas to create this monarchia Hispánica. It says here, have your majesty, for the most important business of your monarchy when you become king of Spain. I mean, sir, don't be content to be king of Portugal, of Aragon, of Valencia, Count of Barcelona, but work and think to reduce this kingdom of which Spain is composed in the styles and laws of Castile. This is one of the most important things that the Conde Duque de Olivares is going to try. and okay, in order to reduce all the institutions and laws from the different kingdoms in just one, but under the style and laws of Castile. And that is why what we know the Union of Armas, okay, la Unión de Armas, the Union of Arms, okay, that is going to lead to the crisis of 1640. The Unión de Armas, okay, la Unión de Armas, it was a program to increase the power of the king and obtain more economic and military resources. It's not only that they wanted to put all together and have just one institution, but they wanted to be more efficient. They wanted to be more efficient economically and militarily. We don't have to forget that although now we are focusing on the domestic problems, they have a lot of problems abroad, foreign problems. We have different wars to fight against in Europe. So we need money and we need an army that defend the interests of the monarchy. So the objective was to integrate all of the kingdoms into a common state with the same laws, institutions, modeled on those of Castile. The first step was the creation of the Unión de Armas. This proposed that in addition to Castile, the remaining territories of the crown would contribute troops and taxes, with the military needed in order to defend the empire. This was something that the territories as Portugal and Aragon, the crown of Aragon, they don't like, because with this new institution, they oblige them to contribute in the same aspects as Castile. And with this union, they don't respect the different institutions that they have. So, as a consequence of this Union of Armas, Portugal is going to demand independence. We don't need to forget that this is not going to be only a domestic problem, although Portugal was part of Spain, of Castilla, since Felipe II, and is going to be part of Spain till 1668, till Carlos II. Also, the main foreign powers, like for example England and France, are going to take advantage of this instability of Castilla. So, at the end, with the help of France and England, Portugal is going to get the independence. Although Castile, as I told you, they are not going to recognize the independence till 1668. On the other hand, we have the case of the Crown of Aragon, mainly Catalonia. The imposition of new taxes and the housing of troops in the territory are going to provoke a peasant uprising at the beginning. The ruling class is going to join that rebellion and put Catalonia under the sovereignty of the King of France. They are going to offer the rule of Catalonia to France. In 1652, at the end, the army is going to take the city of Barcelona, ending the conflict the conflict of Catalonia. So this way we have two conflicts with the same reasons and the same development. Although Conde Duque de Olivares decided to put more efforts to create the Crown of Aragon. So with that efforts, with that army, etc., they are going to stop the independence uprising in Catalonia, but they are going to acknowledge at the end the independence of Portugal. With Carlos II, the last kingdom, we are going to have a lot of problems. The main is the instability. He was a kid and he was not very good prepared for ruling, so the succession of Validos introduced more instability in the kingdom. The struggles for power were a constant of the reign that ended with the loss of the international prestige of the monarchy and, the most seriously, the succession problem. Also, we have Second Germany's peasant revolts all over their territories. What I would like to focus on is the succession war, la guerra de sucesión. The succession war is not only a domestic problem but also a foreign problem, because as you can see here, okay, the war, it was also an international war, okay, because France and Austria, these both countries wanted to put, okay, their their options to rule Spain. We have on the options of France, Felipe de Anjou, the one that is going to be at the end King of Spain, Felipe de Borbón, Felipe V, and the House of Habsburg, Carlos de Habsburgo, that it was the option of Austria. So this war is not going to be only a civil war, so that is going to be also an international war. It's going to be a civil war also because mainly the two main territories in Spain, Castilla and Aragon, they are going to support, Castilla is going to support Felipe de Anjou, and Castilla is going to support, and Aragon is going to support Carlos de Habsburgo. So we have here a war in international aspects and a civil war, because each of these territories is going to support one of the two options to the new king. At the end, after the war and after the help of England, we are going to change. Here you have a map that shows the different countries that support one another. At the end, we change the dynasty. We've been studying since the Catholic monarchs how the Habsburg dynasty or the Austrias dynasty were imposed in Spain from the 1714. We're going to start a new dynasty. That is the one that we still have today. That is the Bourbons that came from France with Felipe V. But this is another story. So what happened in Europe? So as you can see, we have a lot of problems in Spain. Inside the domestic policy was very chaotic. We have this interest of the validos. We have this not interest of the kings in ruling the country. Okay, and we have this instability also in Europe that is going to affect. So the main consequence is that we are going to lose our role in Europe. With Felipe III, the foreign policy, the main objective was the peacemaking. We have a lot of problems inside. We have a lot of economic, demographic, and the crisis, etc. So they don't want to be fighting abroad. So they try to do this peace. We have to mention mainly two, one with the Netherlands and the other ones with England. If you remember, we started with, during the reign of Felipe II, a war against Netherlands and with England. So these are things that now, with Felipe III, they're going to try to establish. But at the end of his reign, is going to start the 30 Years' War. That is the most important event of this era. You have here several maps that shows the different territories that we have at the beginning and the last in different moments through the different truces and peaces that we established with different countries after the different wars that happened in Europe. And this one, this is the division through religions that also affect Spain. Okay, so the 30 Years' War, during the reign mainly of Felipe IV, was the last religion political war and ended with the Peace of Westphalia. This is a summary of this war. Okay, the peace of the war. Okay, the war with the Peace of Westphalia. Okay, that is the treaty of peace at the end. Recognized the new political map. Okay, so the European map is going to change. As you can see here, Spain lost a lot of territory. So if we lost a territory, other countries are going to obtain a benefit from that. We lost the dominance in Europe, but other countries are going to be enriched with that. Okay, so France from now on is going to acquire the hegemony. The Habsburg, the empire of the Habsburgs, the one that Spain belonged to, is going to collapse. Spain is going to become secondary power. The Netherlands are going to obtain the independence from Spain. And Germany, as we know, okay, is going to get, like, in small, you can see here, in small steps. Well, you hear here the German states, Bavaria, Austria, Brandenburg, all these territories. As you can see here, we lose the United Provinces, okay, in 1649. We lost all the territories in 1659. All this here, etc. So the predominance of nation states. As you can see here, the empire of the Habsburgs is going to collapse. So now we are not going to have this huge organization as an empire, but smallest country, the nation states, as we call. We will see this in next year. The absolute monarchies are going to be the way of ruling in Europe, except for in England. This we'll see next week. Okay, the king is going to embody the state. This is an evolution of the authoritarian monarchy, where the king is going to have the absolute power. They are going to recognize that everything comes from God, so nothing can stop their power. The parliaments are not going to be summoned, so the king is an absolute monarch. The last part of the consequence of this, okay, is the religious equality and freedom. This is the 30 Years' War is the last religion war. The Protestant churches are going to be formed, and the southern Europe remains Catholic, as we have in this map, where like the main religions are going to spread and like organize in Europe. More consequences, the money, okay, the huge sums of money that we are going to spend. This, for example, bankrupted the Habsburgs and led, as a consequence, to the collapse of the empire. Thousands of mercenaries were paid a salary and given the right to pillage the conquered territory. The economic activity was abandoned as people were forced to become soldiers. So crops, animals, metals, and other resources were used in war. You have here the total death and missing. Thousands of people dead. Thousands of civil died because of famine, diseases, and banditry. Okay, so the consequences in economic and demographic aspects of the 30 Years' War are very important. So here this graph shows the political consequences, and here you can see the economic and demographic consequences. Okay, so this is like a consequence, like more directly for Spain. We have to recognize like the French now have the power. After Westphalia, in Spain, we continue the war against France until 1659 that we have to sign the Peace of the Pyrenees. At the end, this the only thing that, as you can see here in this map, okay, this one, the territories lost in 1659 with the Peace of the Pyrenees, but that we are going to lose more territories. We are going to give more territories, Roussillon and all this part, to France. Under Carlos II, the war with France is going to continue, and we are going to sign more treaties, okay, and France also is going to receive more territories. That is the last part, okay, this one, the territories lost in 1678. You don't need to know all the territories that we are going to lose, but focus on this map and think about like the different moments that we are going to lose. This is the Peace of Westphalia, this is the Peace of the Pyrenees, and this is the Peace of Nimes with Carlos II. This one, I don't know how to pronounce it, with Carlos II. So the most important thing, the main conclusion and the main consequence is that now France is going to obtain all the power. So this you have to relate it with when Carlos II died without any succession, okay, and the war of succession, it was important that France is going to win here. So France now is the new, more powerful country in Europe, so they are going to obtain also the rule in Spain, putting here their own dynasty. Although they are going to get into an agreement with England, in that agreement, France and Spain cannot be ruled under the same king ever, but at the end they're going to be family. So from now on they're going to act as a whole, as one country. Okay, so during Carlos II, the foreign policy was several wars and mainly the successful problem that as I told you. So what happened, as I told you, what happened economically in society? We're going to live in a crisis. If you remember the video about the Catholic monarchs, we start talking about how good was the economy, how good was the population, increase, etc. So now, everything that you study at the first of the Catholic monarchs, now is everything the other way. We start with bankruptcy. We have to pay so many wars, so many mercenaries, so many things. Obviously, this is going to lead into a bankruptcy. Not only because we have to pay a lot of money, but also, as you can see here, we receive less medals from America. Okay? So all the money that came from America, we use it directly to pay the army that were fighting against the other countries in Europe. So at the end, our country, didn't receive the money. So at the end, Spain, okay. Also, we have a very unproductive society. The privileged one, they just own the land, and they wanted to live off rent, what we know of rents, okay, but they don't stimulate the production. So the ordinary people work to survive. You have here text that how they live off rents, okay. Wealth has existed and exists in the air, in papers and contracts, in taxes and bills of exchange, in currency, in silver and gold, but not in productive goods, which led to more rich and are thereby able to sustain themselves. A working man has to make his living, pay the law of his domain, and taxes to the clergy and the crown. Due to taxation, the family is lost, the nobleman is corrupted, the gentleman is discouraged, and the kingdom suffers. You have here how, okay, Castile, we are going to lose population, while in the rest of Europe they're going to or maintain or grow. Here in Spain we're going to lose. This is due to poor husbands, the continued wars, immigration, the expansions of the Moriscos. You have here in the main cities how that affect to the main cities. So causes of the crisis, remember the will we made at the beginning of the Catholic monarchs? So this is a will, but in a crisis way. Okay, so the population caused by the plague, war, famine, the immigration, and the expulsions of the Moor. If we have less people, that means that trade, industry, agriculture are going to decrease. All these problems related with money are going to lead into the monetary instability. Also, excess taxes, more taxes, foreign dominance. Let me move here. Okay. Easy. At the end, the consequences: bankruptcy, few acceptance of goals, the reduce of the demand of Spanish products, etc. Yes? So you have to relate these consequences with the will that we made at the beginning of Unit 1. And the last thing is this: how is organized the society. This is something that we talk about, and it's the same in last feudal society. We don't need to talk about more. Okay, so with this I finished the presentation from your book. What is important? This is Unit 3 in your book. Okay, you have to go to Unit 3, and here it's a summary of what happened in the transformation in the 17th century. Okay, here European conflicts, 30 Years' War and Franco-Spanish War. And then you have to go to point 4, the Hispanic monarchy in the 17th century, all these 2 pages too. Okay, so 1 and 4, these are the ones that you have to study, to review, to read and summarize after watching this video. Thank you.